A lot of times we make the excuse of our 9 to 5 getting in the way of our life, right? When stuff gets hard outside of work, sometimes it's showing up at work. But with that, I think there comes a lot of time for reflection to kind of go, is this what I want to do for the rest of my life, work wise? All right. What is up, everybody? Episode 14, A Pursuit of Balance. Is work life balance a myth, or is there some actual reality behind that statement? And this is probably the thing that I love talking about the most because, as you guys know, I love talking about mindset. I love talking about lifestyle stuff. And I think there's a lot of wrongful blame in this conversation of work life balance. Like when you think about this dynamic, right? Am I working too much or too hard or in a job that I hate? Or am I really not optimizing life, right? And this is something that didn't happen from normal episodes. I always like to get feedback from clients or people watching it or on Instagram poll. This was actually something that I kind of just currently went through. I wouldn't say currently went through. I'm always going in seasons. It's dynamic for sure. Um, but I had this is probably about a month ago. I had like 5, 6 nights in a row, just was not sleeping at all. Right. And I was like not sleeping well. And I kept thinking, like, man, what am I normally if I'm not sleeping? I'm stressed, right? Like it's just a normal thing for me, right? I wouldn't say it's normal, but like that if I'm in that season, it's normal for me to be like, okay, I'm stressed with work or I'm overthinking something or like whatever it might be. And at 3 a.m. when you're up and you're kind of like, why am I up? The two things kept popping up in my head was like number one was phones, right? I felt like I've developed this kind of habit around having my phone on me a little bit too much and more so kind of at home. And sometimes, like, not to blame my wife, but if my wife is working, I'm like, I'll just distract myself until she's done working until we can do something together, either eating dinner together or watching a movie together or whatever it might be. And that was actually what I was going to shoot for this week's episode was like removing distractions from life, right? And I just feel like I couldn't put enough content together to think about it. But the other part of it was that kept popping up in my head was like I really feel for me personally I'm someone that like needs beach time. I need to go to Santa Cruz. Like what fills my cup almost better than anything, you know, not necessarily being alone, but just being at the beach. So it doesn't matter if it's like going skimboarding or if it's getting the water surfing or if it's just having a cup of coffee staring at the water for an hour, taking a Harley ride over there, paddle boarding, whatever, right? Like just laying down sunbathing is amazing for me, right? And I realized I was like, okay, I used to be so good. Like when I first moved back to California from Florida when I was younger, right? So I was like sophomore, I think, by the time we came back. I was skimboarding a lot in Florida. And then when I moved back to California, I started going to Santa Cruz more. So that's where I started entertaining surfing a little bit more. But I was always consistently, I would say on average, at least twice a week, but probably 2, 3 times a week going to Santa Cruz forever. So many years I was doing that. Then there was this like kind of gap in my 20s, and then I picked it back up. And then as soon as I opened up the gym in 2017, there was this natural downfall that happened because I was so physically, but I would say not even physically, mentally invested into the business, that I was just kind of like so hyper focused on making the business work that I was like, I just didn't make time for it. And that's kind of where I think I've fallen back into it a little bit of like this interesting conversation with myself that I think most people really have a dilemma with is I was very easy to blame work, right? That like, oh, I'm working so much, or I own a business. Of course, you don't have time for those kind of things. And I remember my mom was always like, I'm always surprised how much time you have for yourself, even owning a business. Like, but I made that excuse a lot in the beginning, right? And I made that excuse a lot. And there's definitely seasons. There's seasons of work for me where I'm like, I really don't have time to capitalize on this. The next chapter and season of like my wife's and I's life is like obviously having kids. I know I'm going to have a lot of pullback on some of that. Um, but no matter what, it really I've always realized that it doesn't really take a lot of investment in time for me to get a lot of the energy back that I need, right? Like what fills my cup is what gives me the energy to be good at work, right? What gives me the energy to be good at my relationship or happy in my relationship, happy with work. And the one thing that I always come back to is they are bi-directional. Like me having quote unquote a better life or just doing things more for myself has allowed me to be better at work. But me optimizing my work and being better at work and having better output at work has allowed me to be more motivated or financially able or time wise able to do things on my life side. And I think there's this kind of this double negative that happens for some of us. Like when you're in this place of life where you feel a little depressed or you're a little bit stressed, either consciously or unconsciously, or anxious about things, it's very easy to start going like, okay. And I remember even that when I was driving to work. This is like a month ago when I was like on day 3 of like what I felt like I haven't slept in like 3 full days. And I was like, I don't know how the hell. Well, I do know how I did this in my early 20s. Partying helped. Um, but I remember just like kind of being emotional in the drive, and I'm like, maybe I'm not happy. Like you kind of like go through these like not dark, but like weird thoughts of like maybe I'm not happy. Like, am I not happy with where I'm at in life, or am I not happy in my job? Is there something in my relationship? Like I was like overthinking just because I wasn't sleeping. And then it's like one good night of rest, and it's like those thoughts weren't even like a thought anymore. And it's just like goes to show you that like, okay, there's a good statement by Alex Hormozy. It says, never make a big decision or a big decision in life or business when you're tired. Always make sure you make big decisions when you're well rested. So true, because that's living proof that like I was just like in a weird headspace. But for me, I know that like even just a lot of people that I'm surrounded by, or even just the things that I hear around me, there's a lot of people that kind of just live either in like a mild or even very chronic version of that feeling all the time. Like they're not really fully fulfilled with work, or they're not fulfilled with their life, or they're not fulfilled with their relationships. And then we just start to point the fingers, right? And I think this is where a lot of like aggressive, like fast decisions happen in life, which I think sometimes could be detrimental. Sometimes they're great. Sometimes like it is important for you to make a big life changing decision to hopefully see, the greener grass on the other side. But my statement has always been the grass is green where you water it, and grass is going to be green where you just basically give it attention to. So I think about this a lot of like, okay, well, how do I solve work-life balance for myself, right? How do I solve work-life balance for the people listening to this, or the people that want to learn how to do these things? Because for me, like a big part of what I do selfishly for myself, but as a profession, is like improving people's vitality, improving the way they live their lives, right? Like longevity was always something that was super important to me. When I had my grandpa and my uncle pass at a young age, I don't think I realized it then. But then I had a best friend, lost to suicide. I just had like a lot of like little moments in life that kind of just compounded really quick, where I was like, whoa, like life can be short. And I don't want, no, I don't want to, obviously no one wants to die early, but like life can be short from, unplanned things, or even just like lack of taking care of yourself on the health side of things. So no matter what, I want to make sure that I go hard and live it up. But I want to live it up in a way that doesn't sacrifice longevity as much. So there's always this conversation. I even have this in my notes for another episode, maybe one day, of like vitality versus longevity. Longevity, I think, is optimizing for the length of time that we have in life, right? I would much rather, and I say this, sometimes it sounds dark, I'd much rather have a life where I live to 90 or 85 or 80 that was maxed out, versus getting to 100, 110, 120 where 20, 30 years are boring, right? Like for me, I don't want to have a boring life. So vitality is something I put more energy towards as far as me personally. Now, you as the individual, you need to kind of figure that out, right? But when you think about longevity, what I do like about longevity thoughts is like it forces you to think in the macro. It forces you to think in decades. And a lot of times, like I know for myself when I was in my 20s and teens, or just as a kid, you don't think about that. You don't think about your 40s. You don't think about your 50s. You don't think about being a grandparent. You don't think about that stuff. You're like, I'm fucking living it up. I'm selfish. I'm in my era of life where I should enjoy it. And you should. If you are someone that's younger to it, don't fucking change. Like just live it up and enjoy life. But when I got into late 20s, but more importantly, like where I'm at now in like my mid 30s of life, I really started to have a lot more of those thoughts of like, okay, I got kids coming as the next chapter. Like what does the next decade of work look like for me? What is like, where am I living with my family? Like, what am I going to do in my 40s, my 50s? Like, so I've started to think a lot longer as far as like my time horizon, which I do think is empowering too, because it kind of forces you to almost slow down a little bit, because when you're young, you're just like, I got to get this shit done by now. I got to be this person by 25. I got to be this thing by 28. Like I had these like really, really extreme goals at a young age. And I've kind of learned to like slow it down and kind of enjoy the moment a little bit more. And I think just getting older naturally kind of forces you into some of that. But with that, I think there comes a lot of time for reflection to kind of go, is this what I want to do for the rest of my life, work wise? Or is this a life that I want to live? Like, are these the hobbies, or are these the people I want to spend time? Like, you go through all these things. And I think like me naturally being someone that kind of just always is optimizing lifestyle, I think about those things a lot, right? But so coming back to the story, the last 3, 4 weeks, I think I've gone on average twice a week, right? So I've been golfing once or twice a week. That's always been pretty consistent for me. That was always the thing. I've been skimboarding now a couple times a week. By the time you guys are listening to this episode, I'll be in Italy on my honeymoon, really enjoying life. But like just the last month before me leaving for my honeymoon, I've been putting more eggs in the basket of like, just go to Santa Cruz. You know that's something that's gonna fill your cup. And I'm not joking. It was a night and day difference on my energy at work and my well-being. Just overall. Like I just felt so much better. And it didn't require me a lot of time. It's like, okay, yes, it's a 30-minute drive there and back. So an hour of driving, maybe an hour in the water. So it's 2 hours, right? So it's 4 hours a week that I'm dedicating to myself. The one thing that I will say is the improvement immediately on the investment of me doing something for myself actually made me, I feel like a little bit better at work. And maybe it's not dramatic to others, but like I felt, as far as how I felt at work, was very dramatic. A lot of times we make the excuse of our 9 to 5 getting in the way of our life, right? And I want to be mindful and empathetic of those that have children because I'm not that stage of life. So I can't really empathize because I don't understand it yet. I can understand it as a fun uncle, to my nieces and nephews and just being around them when I'm like around like my friends' kids and family's kids. But I don't have that like quote unquote excuse yet. I always do say it is kind of like a cocky statement. I can't wait for me to have kids so I can kind of show people that you can still do these things. But I don't want to get ahead of myself. Let me get there first. But there's always this kind of funny saying in business that it's not your 9 to 5 that's killing your dreams. It's your 5 to 9, right? Meaning like we have 8 hours of work, right? We have 40 hours of work on average, right? As a trainer, like my average like employee here works 30 something hours a week, right? Or almost right around 30. So it's like for our industry, it's even a little bit less, right? But let's just call the normal thing 40 hours a week. You have 168 hours in a week, right? Let's say that you're sleeping 8 hours a night. Let's even round up. Let's say you're sleeping 10 hours a night. Let's say you get 70 hours a week, right? That means you have 98 hours left. Then you subtract 40 from work. That means you have 58 hours left. Then you subtract your eating and your driving and all the other things. People will be surprised when you actually map out the time on how much time is being wasted on things that are not productive towards living a better life or feeling better or filling your cup, right? And that is also going to then bleed into, I have an employee of mine that we talk about on and off, like kind of through our one-on-ones, that like when stuff gets hard outside of work, sometimes it's showing up at work, right? And it's easier said than done, but I always call it wearing different masks. Like when I wear my mask at work, I am business Corey. I want to be focused on work. When I'm working out, I want to be working out. I want to be present there. When I'm at home with my wife, I want to be present there. When I'm skimboarding or I'm golfing, I want to be present in the moment. When you lose presence because of distractions, either mentally or your emotional state or whatever it might be due to stress sometimes, you tend to kind of bleed everything else and then everything just becomes dull, right? And like the easiest way for me to explain what I've gone through a couple times in life is like, it's not that I'm doing anything different. I have the same job. I have the same hobbies. I'm working out the same amount of times. Like I've always been good about like having my consistency in like the big things. But what I've realized is sometimes I lose the intensity of the enjoyment or fulfillment that I get from it. Right. And the reason why it gets a little dull for me, like, and the kind of easiest way to explain it is like bright lights and then it becoming a little bit dull. And I feel that sometimes at work where I'm like, I'm at work and I'm kind of just going through the motions, right? Or I'm at work and I'm not motivated by the things that I should be proactive about. So I procrastinate a little bit more. Or I'm at home and I'm just going through the motions. Or I'm like, and so when I stop doing the things on the life side of this conversation of work-life balance, that's where I feel like everything in my life just becomes dull. So I cannot stress this enough on the importance of whatever it is for you as the individual, right? For me, it's like my hobbies. I said this on an episode probably 2 months ago, right? I said like how to live a badass life. And I remember when I finished the episode, I don't know what I was. I think I was rushed for time because I had an appointment. So I remember like kind of rushing through the last part. And the thing that I left out that was so important for me in my life was the importance of hobbies, right? I made another episode about this like a couple years ago. I think the importance of hobbies as a human being is the most important thing. And I don't want to make this gender specific. I think sometimes for men, hobbies are more important than for females, right? And I think sometimes connection and social time can sometimes be more important for females versus males. But to make it gender neutral, I think it's important to have it no matter what. So the easiest way to look at this is like, and I use this as an example of just what I experience in life, right? Like for me, having social time is not as important for me, right? Like it's important, but it's not as important. If I can do the things that fill my cup of like going skimboarding or going golfing or going on a Harley ride or taking the cars out or being outside or, whatever, like whatever fills my cup, sunbathing, just laying outside, doing things like that. I feel really, really good about everything else, right? When I'm not doing those things with or without people, I then go, like, I wish I could see my friends. I wish I had, I wish I liked work. I wish I was in a better place to work. I start going through all those thoughts. So you need to figure out for you, like as an individual, what are the things that really fill your cup and charge you up? Because the things that charge you up are the things that are going to give you energy, and those will fundamentally make everything better. Right. This employee that I was talking about that in a one-on-one. I was saying like, hey, you need to be better at managing your time for yourself. Right. Because what I look at for the amount of hours you're working is not crazy. Right. You got this and this and this on life outside of work, but total hours, you still have a big chunk of stuff that's being underutilized. Right. And kind of coming back to the distraction part, right? Like for me, I forget what the phone tells me, but I want to say my phone's saying it's either 4 or 6, but 4 or 6 hours a day is what I use on my phone. Granted, I use my phone a lot for work, right? So if I'm on Gmail, if I'm doing stuff for Instagram, if I'm posting a podcast, like I do use my phone a decent amount for work, but I would be lying to you if I think it's a majority of that time spent. I think a lot of my time is like, I love watching YouTube videos when I'm in the sauna or in a car ride. Well, I don't watch them necessarily. I listen to them in a car ride, just so you guys know. I listen to podcasts all the time. I listen to music, Pandora, Spotify. So I'm sure there's a lot of time that is like not quote unquote like being distracted by social media. But I think there is a huge chunk of time out of that time that is allocated towards distracting myself, right? Which is like kind of just like, it's almost like numbing yourself, right? And I think about that like when a lot of people talk about, drinking alcohol or smoking weed or people taking drugs, like they're using this as a distraction. And I say they, like I drink myself every night, right? Not like I'm drinking myself to get drunk, but I'll have a couple glasses with wine like I did last night for dinner every night during the weekdays, and I'll go on the weekends with friends or my wife. I like to smoke. I like to take an edible. I like to smoke a joint. That's always been something that was a part of my like kind of wind down at night. So I can understand where the winding down part of it makes sense because some people are just doing it as a complete distraction to escape reality. Some people are doing it as a way to kind of force rest. For me, it's like when I get home, it's like I like to shower. Well, Sonic cold plunge, shower. And then I'll like, cool, pour myself a glass of wine. I'll roll a joint. I'll prep some dinner. I'll cook some dinner. I'll eat dinner with my wife. We'll watch an episode or 2 or 3, depending on how the night is or how the show is, right? And like that's our wind down time. And for me, it's like I always call it. It's like my finish line. It's the finish line to my day every night. That's always been a staple there. But coming back to that story, as I was telling him, I was like, okay, I want you to really make sure that you can allocate more time for yourself or your family. Okay, if that's like, and this was something that was important to him. So if that's important for you, because that's going to allow you to be better at work and be more present. It's going to be better at home for your wife, right? It's going to allow you to kind of dedicate more of those things. And that's just an example that popped up in my head. But I know there's so many people in life that deal with this. Now, to come back to the work perspective, I don't want to make this episode sound like the reason why work-life balance is a myth or is out of whack is because life is the problem. I will say that I think more people can spend more energy improving their life outside of work to make everything else better. But there are plenty of people that have jobs that they dislike, that are overworked, that are stressed, that are underappreciated. And that work with people they don't enjoy. Like there's, a handful of reasons. I'm trying to think of all the reasons why someone would not like their work or not fulfilled by it. If you are someone like that, you need to remember this one thing. Because I tell this to my wife all the time. She's great at what she does, but she's very stressed out with work and she's very overworked. I always tell her, quit her job, please come work with me. Because I would love for you to A, selfishly work with me, and B, I know your life would be much happier as far as stress levels. That being said, I can't pay her what tech can pay her, so tech has ruined everybody for me because like I can't keep up with that salary cap. So we don't work in an industry that pays that much or makes that much. But I think from like a work-life balance perspective, when you think about like happiness for you, it's like your work should be, in a sense, fulfilling, right? It could solve the objective of making enough money to provide for yourself or provide for your family, to pay for the expenses or give you enough money to travel and have whatever leisure, whatever things you want to buy yourself. But I also think for the amount of time that we spend working in life, it's more important for you to go backwards a little bit in something, either your role, your position, your company, new industry, new endeavor, or even pay cut to get slingshotted forward, right? So I use this kind of like analogy a lot. I call it the slingshot effect. There's a lot of times in life where you're going to actually take a step backwards or two to then move 3 or 4 or 5 steps forward. Meaning like I'm going to go backwards and then I'm going to get propelled forward in life. That slingshot effect for most people is very intimidating. The idea of going backwards before going way forward from where I was previously, before starting the next endeavor or taking that step in life, it's hard to just mentally convince yourself from a security perspective that you are going to get propelled forward. The easy example I can give you is like when I started the business, I was like, okay, I'm leaving a 6-figure job that's stable, that won't fire me, I don't think, that I have a good base of clients, and now I'm going to quit this to go start something new. And I didn't pay myself, like I said a couple episodes ago, for a couple of years, right? I was able to survive on some of the personal training money that I was making for my just individual clients. But for me, it was mentally, it was like, okay, this is going to be a little intimidating financially, but I'm someone personality wise that likes to be shoved in a corner. I want to be pressured into doing something. Like I need to fight my way out of it. Comfort is a big crisis for me because like if I got comfortable, I would have just been comfortable making that amount of money. But now it's like, okay, I have excelled past that amount for myself, but I had to go backwards for a while, and not even just for a while, then I forever stayed above. Like I had a couple times where I even went further back, and that's just entrepreneurship in a nutshell. But when it comes to selecting your work, I think it is really important to make sure that like you're allocating the right energy into the macro point of view of your work. Like, what are you really working for? Are you working for the ego and the title and the money? Are you working for you to enjoy your job and it to be sustainable for the next 10, 20, 30, 40 years, how much working time you got left in your career? Like whatever that might be. Are you working around the right people? Are you working in a company that has the same values and missions that you have to solve? Like, because there are things that make work very, very fulfilling. No matter what position you are, employee, employer, manager, like whatever title, right? Those are things I think really a lot of people should be putting a lot of energy into as well, because there's so many people that are just working because they think they need to be at that job, or they have a hard time getting over the fact that the next relationship or next job could potentially be better, because we convince ourselves that the brain is based off fear, that what if it doesn't work? What if I quit this job that is consistent salary wise, that is giving me money, but I'm not 100% happy with, and I go to a job that pays me less that's worse? What if, right? What if I go and I start something and try to do it on my own and I fail? What if, right? Like, I think the idea of not taking the chance to find out the right thing is worse than staying in something that you know is not right. And that's like, it's easy, like relationship advice, right? There's times that every single human's going to go, well, I would assume majority of humans will go through where they're going to feel that this relationship is not right in the long term, right? I've always been someone when I was dating at a young age of like, do I see myself marrying this person? And if there was something that I felt like was a red flag that I would not be okay with in the long run, I would be like, okay, like it's not someone I would date, or this is not someone I want to continually dating if I'm already dating, right? Like my wife was like, when we started dating, I was like, okay, there's a lot of qualities that I see this person being someone that I would want to spend the rest of my life with. This is someone that I would want to raise a family with. This is someone like I want to spend time with, right? Like same way we should view work and the relationship that we have with it, right? Is like, is that something that you see yourself doing for 5, 10, 20, 30, 40 years? And if the answer is no, it's not the end of the world. I always think about this as the worst case scenario. If the gym fails, what is worst case scenario? I start over? What if I started over at zero? I was telling that to a couple of coaches. I was like, wouldn't it be weird? I was talking about something. We were talking about hacking, I think. And I was like, wouldn't it be weird is like you just woke up one day or shitty and you just like your bank account was at zero. And you started over. And like, what if that was the case? Start over. I mean, you have no other option to just try and go and start over and go moving forward, right? And it's the same thing that like I view work and relationships with, right? So when you think about the work-life balance part of it, yes, there is optimizations and things that you can do to change and upgrade your life as far as work goes, right? Whatever is important for you to pull out of work, right? For me, purpose was always a big thing. Making money so I can actually afford to have a life that I want for myself and my family was important, but more importantly was enjoying it. Like if I don't enjoy my work, I'm not going to fucking do it. I'd rather not get paid and enjoy life than get paid and hate life, right? But I want you guys to spend a lot more time thinking about how do I optimize my 5 to 9? If I am there was this podcast I was listening to yesterday, Ryan Pineda, real estate investor, and he was talking about, he's like, hey, I have 3 kids. I run 3 businesses. But what I do in the morning is I wake up at 5 o'clock, and the guy, very religious, but he's like, okay, I pray and I do my like God's work for an hour, and I work out, I do my thing, so this way I can give back to the people that I need to give back, which is like I got to give, 6 to 8 to 10 hours a day to my team, and then I got to go home and finish out the rest of the day to give my energy to my kids, to help them with school, to help them with sports, obviously support my wife emotionally, time wise, financially, whatever it might be. And he says, if I don't do the work for myself, right? So for him, he was talking a little bit more about his stuff with his religion and stuff like that, which you can use this in every way, right? Like I'm not a very religious person. I'm more of what I would consider spiritual. But I think about spiritual being kind of the same aspect of like, if I can't give myself what I'm trying to give to others, then I'm eventually going to burn myself out and hate everything else, right? Or dislike everything because it comes dull. So understand, and I use the 5 to 9 is something that's just kind of like a timing strategy. It could be whatever time, it could be whatever day, it could be whatever frequency makes you kind of happy. But like an easy way for most of us to think is like, I start work at 10 o'clock. What I do in the morning is they're going to dictate how well I can feel the rest of the day, right? Because if I just don't capitalize on my morning, like yesterday, it's like, okay, I went skimboarding in the morning, woke up at 7 o'clock, was out there probably in the water by 8, left at 9, back at 9:30, was able to read, able to do some payroll, left to work, right? Work for however long I was there, came back, I'm with my wife, right? And I think about that with kids in the future is like, I don't know how my mornings are going to look when I have kids. I'm sure they'll be a little bit different, but I know like my evenings are probably going to be, if anything, better because I'll probably have less time on phones and screens because I'll be with the kids and helping the kids out or helping my wife. So think about how do I optimize these parts? The other part is like, look at the weekends, right? Like weekends are literally designated free time. As a parent, I will say empathetically, it sounds like a lot of people don't have as much free time with kids because they're Ubering them to freaking sports and this event and this birthday party. And, when I hear the stories, I'm like, my God, that sounds like so much. But for the people that do have the time, right, with or without kids, capitalize on the weekends. Make your weekends a frick. Like, there's sometimes I hear this statement of like, don't live for the weekends. And I agree with that because that's like optimizing work and that's optimizing the time around work Monday through Friday. But I also like to say, go hard on the weekends and live for the weekends too, because the weekends are that time where it's like, fuck yeah, another week, like the way I look at my nighttime finish line, like I mentioned earlier, is the way I kind of look at the weekend. It's like, hell yeah, another great successful week, another time for me to go out to restaurants, hang out with some friends, go do something I enjoy, have the full day off, sleep in a little bit, like capitalize on that. But if you're not capitalizing on that and you're wasting it, yeah, of course you're going to get back to work and be like, fuck, I got the Sunday scaries, or fuck, I'm back to work. The weekend went by so fast. The more stuff that you can do for yourself that makes you feel good, the better you're going to feel all the fucking time. Like you need to understand the importance of that. And like, I share this is not telling you what you need to do. I'm sharing this like almost like I'm talking to myself in the mirror. I know when I am the happiest in life, and it's when I solve that problem. I know what's keeping me up at night. Like the one thing that I will say I've gotten really good at as I've gotten older is like when I am dealing with a little bit of anxiety or overthinking, stress, depression, whatever we want to label it as, I'm really good at kind of identifying and creating awareness around what is causing it. The thing that I wrote this yesterday in a post, awareness not followed by action equals anxiety. Right? Like we become anxious when we don't take action on the things that we have awareness about solving. If we don't have awareness on it yet, obviously that's kind of step one. But when you have awareness, you need to then follow on an action. Like that week that I didn't sleep well, I immediately went skimboarding the second day after I slept well, right? And I immediately felt great. I was like, cool, I did something. So understand that action is going to solve more stress for you guys more than anything else in life. Like just taking action on things that allow you to feel better about your life or feel better in work are going to make those things better, right? And like I said, they are bidirectional. Like when I work really, really hard and I feel productive, not busy, not only do I get rewarded by it financially, not only do I get rewarded by it mentally and emotionally because I accomplished something, it then allows me to then designate it more resources and energy towards living a better life, right? Because like, cool, now I'm gonna afford to take my wife on a 3-week honeymoon, right? Now I can afford, to drive that car that I always love driving because I'm a car guy, right? But also when I spend more time doing, investing into my relationships, doing things that fill my cup, like doing my hobbies, spending time with people, having, making sure my wife's happy because when she's happy, I'm happy, like all those other things outside of life. Then I'm like, oh yeah, now I'm at work. I actually want to produce more. So they feed each other, right? So a lot of times, just to kind of wrap up today's conversation, the work-life balance, if you were to visually think about this, it's not work just burning you out. It's not just life burning you out. It's always going to be a combination of both. But I will say that over the course of 24 hours, you're still probably working, most people, less time than you are not working. Now, if you were to just subtract sleep, you probably could be pretty equal. If I'm sleeping 8 hours a night and working 8 hours a day, I got 8 hours of free time, quote unquote free time. Capitalize on this. Even like in making your time more efficient when you're not doing that. Like instead of getting, I got to sit in 2 hours of traffic every day. Sometimes I bitch about it, but I'm like, oh, cool. I can listen to a podcast. I can educate myself, right? Sometimes I don't want to listen to music because I'm spending all my time in the gym listening to music because I'm like, fuck, I'm burnt out on music. But I'm like, cool, I'll capitalize on learning because I feel good when I'm learning something. Or I'll make phone calls, right? I'll do things I need to do. I'll be productive. Getting things done makes me feel good, right? Productivity makes me feel good. Getting things done for myself makes me feel good. So just understand that. Always think about that, guys, that like there is always two parts of the conversation. There's multiple ways to look at it, but living a really good life, I think, comes from having a balance of having really good work and really good life, and understand that these two things teeter tot between each other as far as balance goes. I don't think work-life balance is a myth. I think it's important to have balance. I preach it more than anybody. I name my damn show after it. The last little statement I'll leave with you guys is I heard this from someone I follow. I don't know him personally. I just know him via social media. And he was like, balance is overrated. Balance is bullshit. And I hear this a lot, right? And I tend to hear this from like higher up business people that I respect. So like, I always try to take it with a grain of salt of like, okay, being open-minded with this, is it? And he's like, I don't make time for all the other distractions of life. I make time for my workouts. I make time for my business. I take time for my family. So I don't have balance. And I'm like, as I hear that, I go, well, by definition, that's balance. You're giving yourself time for workouts. You're giving yourself time for your family. You're giving yourself time for business. So your balance is the idea that, can I balance all my things in my life? If you were unemployed and rich and had no family and no relationship, the only thing that would keep you balanced is doing shit that makes you happy. Now, most people have a job, have a significant other, probably have kids. So how do I balance all of these things? Just means I'm going to delegate as far as time-wise, maybe a little bit less into each of them, and understand there's going to be seasons. There's going to be ages that your kids are going to require a lot of attention. There's going to be ages where your kids don't require any attention. There's going to be ages where your kids are out of the house. There's going to be times at work where it's going to be crazy. There's going to be times at work where you can coast, right? There's going to be times in life where I want to spend more time on my hobbies because it's summertime. There's going to be times where it's the middle of winter and I just fucking want to stay inside all day. Like, it's seasonal. It's cyclical. It will forever be that way. But just understand that balance in the macro point of view has its ebbs and flows. But put more eggs in the basket of what you want for yourself, because what you want is going to give you more energy to give what everyone else wants. Your clients, your business, your family, your kids, etc. All right, guys. Well, I hope that was a good episode to hear. There was something I needed to hear out loud and just say out loud. I will not be having an episode next week because I'll still be in Italy by the time you guys hear this one. So you guys will hear me 2 weeks from today. Sounds good. Take care.